Hello, hello, my beautiful community. I am so grateful that you are here with Whitney Natiello and we are going to be talking about the brain's technique. And I know it's been a while since I give a little life update. So I wanted to kind of wrap this in because Whitney is a dear friend and has really introduced me into so many things that have completely changed my life. She actually came in with a loved one to Amen clinics. And I remember being so intimidated because I didn't know much about energy. And she just had this big energy and this mama bear energy. Like, I will do anything to take care of my people. And she's done that. She's been one of the first people I call when I need help. And now, knowing what we're going to be talking about today, she was coaching me through the brain's technique in many of my crises in the past several months. But we have been friends and colleagues for many years now. She introduced me to human design. She introduced Archer to his first and best animal communicator. And I just wanted to really I set an intention for us to just like literally have fun and for the right people to have this information and to, as always, believe healing is always possible. And I don't talk as much about acute trauma because I honestly just shut down. Like, when I heard about what happened in Nashville, like, I didn't even know how to respond. So I really wanted to just shed some light onto the fact that it really only takes one person to completely change the entire trajectory of your life. And Whitney is definitely one of those people for me. And we've done a lot of stuff in the past, but that was before I kind of did my own thing and grew my email list and all of that stuff. So if this is your first time meeting her, I'm just so grateful that we get to share her because it just means a lot to me. And just to give a little context too, just because if some of the people here do follow me on Instagram and like check my stories, and I know I get very heated about some of the things with our reality and how we are choosing to live out of the matrix and choosing to be the good and to be the light. And I was talking to a couple of friends about us meeting today, and they're like, they took the Asheville stuff off the news so quickly that I would have no idea that these things are happening right now if I didn't know because of you and a couple other colleagues who were in Asheville. So I was hoping, before I go into your bio, just to kind of set the stage for people to understand what really actually happened in Asheville and why the brain's technique has been like a complete godsend for so many people. So that, again, like that frame of reference, right? And it's so funny because when something really sad and horrible happens, I either immediately go into I'm made for this. Like, I could be a cop, I could be a firefighter. And then other times I completely shut down. I'm absolutely speechless. And that's how I felt about the Asheville thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me, Fallon.
Of course.
So in Asheville, yes, the hurricane that came in on, for where I was, it was September 27th and 28th. And I'm about an hour, not quite an hour north of Asheville. And so I gratefully in my own home was safe, but less than a mile away, there were 3 tornadoes that went through. There were landslides. And so that's kind of what makes it different, because typically you don't have a hurricane in the mountains, especially, hundreds and hundreds of miles off the coast. And so it wasn't only the rain and the wind, but it was the tornadoes and the landslides that made it so hard. And so when you get into the mountains, there's tons of people that live in the mountains, like on single dirt roads to get to their neighborhoods. And so they got completely, washed out and isolated. So many different, I was looking for a house in this area for about 2 years. And there was one house I was this close to buying a year ago, and it's gone. It's totally gone, that one decision. And so it wasn't only like the rising waters, but it was the way that it came in, which was very sudden. So a lot of people were like, oh, there's a wind rainstorm coming and that's it. But we got 7 inches of rain the night before, Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, we had then the hurricane hit. So we it was just two storms, one right after the other. And the hard part here is that there's landslides. You don't get landslides in Florida. It doesn't make it, it's just different in how a hurricane hits. It doesn't make it, worse or worser. Is that a word?
Yeah.
So immediately I started working with the first responders, the volunteers, and those impacted. And I had so many people in acute traumatic distress, and they were not functioning because their system was completely paralyzed, and they were not able to take the next steps of what they needed to do in order to take care of themselves and their family, and get out of where they needed to get out of, and all of those things. So it came at a I was 2 weeks out from rolling this technique out to the public, and the hurricane hit, and I was like, okay, there's 9 ways to use the brains technique, but one of the ways is acute trauma and stress. And so that's what I've been focusing on. And I've been focusing on training as many practitioners of any kind, coaches, therapists, healers of any kind, to be able to learn the technique so that they then can go ahead and continue to help as many people as possible, because I can't get to everybody, to give them relief and to help get their brain back online so that they can find solutions to the stressor and trauma.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I just am all about, oh, your frequency matches. Like, I want to work with you. It's been, a very long time since I was even excited at the possibility of learning a modality, let alone like actually being like, no, I am absolutely doing this. And I know it's going to make a huge difference. And it's going to open up my entire scope of the different ways that I can work with people. So I'm excited to talk about it, but I want people to know about your amazing background. So Whitney and I met, like I said, through A.M.N Clinics. So she is a certified brain health professional and trainer. And she also introduced me to German new medicine, which is like a very fun portal for you to go through. And I kind of think of it as more of a science brain biological base of like what Louise Hay teaches about like you injuring your right knee and like the significance of that. And again, if you do follow my Instagram stories, I'm like constantly Googling German new medicine, whatever I'm dealing with, and sharing it because I think it's just absolutely amazing. And Whitney is a Chinese medicine doctor. And I know a lot of people know how obsessed I am with that. And she has over 24 years of experience as an acupuncturist. And she owned a wellness center called Source for Wellbeing, which had over 30 modalities. So the fact that you have this one, I just feel like is so amazing. I can't wait to talk about it. And she supported a team of 14 practitioners. And you teach people around the world about brain health and acupuncture and supplements and herbs, all of those amazing things. And what we're going to be talking about today is the B.R.A.I.N.S technique, which is a revolutionary method to improve blood flow to the brain. And again, blood flow is the #1 predictor of Alzheimer's disease. So if you want to prevent dementia, this is definitely something to add to your toolbox. And the B.R.A.I.N.S technique also helps enhance problem-solving abilities and decision-making while preventing illness. And again, I'm really excited to dive in and talk more about the acute and the way that it supports chronic illness. And so if you want to just kind of give us your little elevator pitch of like what it is, how it works, who it helps.
Okay. So thank you. So the B.R.A.I.N.S technique is, it takes about 5 to 7 minutes on average.
So long.
So long. Can you sit for 5 to 7 minutes? That's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
And so it helps with acute trauma that has happened in the last few minutes, hours, days, weeks, up to 4 months. So it is a hard stop at 4 months. So anything that has happened prior to 4 months is better off doing something like EMDR therapy, or ART, any type of post-traumatic stress trauma therapy. That is with a therapist, and that's in a safe environment, and that is separate. So this is for something that has happened recently in the past couple months. And so we are still here in Asheville in that recent window. So I'm trying to get to help as many people as I can in this window, because if these people don't get helped right now, in the next month or so, then it will turn into post-traumatic stress disorder for them. And a lot of them already have post-traumatic stress, so then they're in complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So I'm trying to prevent PTSD. So with the B.R.A.I.N.S technique, it takes about 5 to 7 minutes. It is utilizing bilateral stimulation on different parts of the body and at different rates and speed, focusing on different aspects of the trauma. And so it helps with insomnia, brain fog, decision making, anything, any type of survival mechanism. If you're in fight, flight, freeze, or flop, this will help to move your nervous system out of that into parasympathetic. And it will help to not only calm the nervous system, there's thousands of things to calm the nervous system. You can do deep breathing and acupuncture and chiropractic and massage and meditation and yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong. And there's 5 million things out there that help to calm the nervous system, which is awesome. But the one thing that they don't do is they don't help you. They help to calm your nervous system and get you into that parasympathetic rest, digest, and heal. But it doesn't, those modalities don't help to solve to find a resolution to the stressor or trauma. So, for example, I had a woman who she was okay during the storm. She was stressed, but she was okay. And when she went to her favorite mountain and hiking place, which is where she de-stresses, the entire mountain was gone. The trees were completely gone. She said it looked like apocalyptic. And so she was so stressed, not only about the trees, but then that she didn't have a place to go to unwind and de-stress from the hurricane. And so she was very upset. So we walked through the process. And at the end, I said, did you have any perspective changes or solutions that you could do? I mean, you personally can't rebuild the forest. So
Right.
what kind of solutions could you possibly have to something like that? So she came up with four solutions. So one solution was to that she realized that she's a death doula and that she has been so focused on the death and people who have died, but she can also apply all of those skills to the death of the forest. So that
Wow.
was one huge perspective shift,
Yeah.
which I could not have told her that. I mean, I could not have said, hey, like, this is a good idea. Like, she had to come up with it.
Yeah.
So another one was that she, when she first started seeing the imagery in her mind, she only saw just the devastation. And at the end, the last couple visions that she had with it is she saw all the new growth. She saw the green leaves and the new growth, new trees coming after a devastation. So she was able to see that at the same time. And so the devastation kind of, was further in the distance. She also realized that she wanted to do a ceremony and invite her shamanic type women friends and bring them to the place, bring them to that mountain and do ceremony to help
Wow.
nourish and heal the earth. And so that was another third solution. And then another solution that she had was she felt very called to do something with her hands. So after we got off the call, she collaged and was working with the devastation energy of that. So I could have, like, if I had sat down with her and said, oh, I'm sorry you're worried about that. Why don't you just collage? Why don't you just, you've got tools for this. You're okay. Like, that
Eh,
would not have entered into her understanding and ability to solve to look for the solution. She had to come up with it herself. And that's what the brain's technique is so beautiful at, is it not only resolves the stress of the trauma on the nervous system, but then it also finds a solution or perspective change to the trauma that only that person can see. It is our individual psyche that registers the trauma. So it is our individual psyche that needs to find a solution to it. Like sometimes other
Wow.
people can say something and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe I'll try that. But it doesn't really land. It doesn't solve biologically what needs to happen next. So I don't know if I answered that question or if I got
Oh
off
my
on a
God. Yeah, it was
tangent.
amazing. And it's funny because now I'm reflecting on my experience. So one of the many meltdowns that I had about why can't I just get the fuck out of Georgia? What is wrong? You helped me and it empowered me, right? And it helps these divine downloads and synchronicities come in. And it feels like that's what it's doing for a lot of these people, especially women, right? Like we're created for receiving all of these downloads, right?
Yes, yes. And my men clients will say it's not even about, I mean, it does give you access to the subconscious brain, conscious brain, and your intuition, which your psyche is a combination of. And it's also a combination of your beliefs and your values and your life experiences. And so there's 8 billion people on the planet, and there's 8 billion solutions that are different for each person.
Mm.
So it can be somebody who doesn't consider themselves intuitive.
Well,
They
yeah, the science, the of
absolutely
the
have
nerdy
access.
science.
Yeah, yeah, because one of the things that we're doing is we're increasing blood flow to the whole brain. So as you know so well, when we go into trauma mode, our blood flow is hyperactive in the amygdala and the hypothalamus and in a couple different areas, but it's super focused. So just like our blood flow doesn't fully leave, but it leaves the main organ systems in the center of our body for the blood flow to go to our arms and legs so that we can survive the moment, so we can survive from running from the tiger. And so the same thing happens in the brain. The brain has really, when we are in survival, the blood flow is really hyperactive in certain areas and restricted in others. And when we are in survival, we do not have access to our prefrontal cortex. When there is a tiger running from us, we're not going, oh, I think I'll paint a cloud on my canvas when I get back. And maybe I'll throw a new dance step in there. And, what will I have for dinner tonight? And, maybe I should go here for vacation. You're not thinking about any of those things. Like that ability to access that part of your brain is not there. And so what this brain's technique does is it moves you out of survival. It increases blood flow everywhere in the brain. And then you have access to problem solve and to do so creatively. So the more people that we can can use this technique will be able to solve the world's problems, like climate changes, political changes, environmental changes, all of the things that we need to solve. And this is one way to have access to do that. I mean, that's just another use.
Amazing.
Besides treating trauma.
I love that you leave me speechless. Not many people can say that. So, let's say someone falls and breaks their ankle or gets in a car accident.
Mhm.
Obviously, at some point, they're probably going to go to the hospital. How does that work?
So I have had the experience where I actually was at a scene of a crime for a car accident, and it's excellent to use in that time and space. So in my experience, I was one car length away from the car that got hit. And so I ran over to the car that got hit and pulled the woman out, assessed for physical damages. She was okay physically, pulled her out, called 911, and she was repeating 3 things. Oh my God, this is my friend's car. I just dropped her off at the airport and she's going to kill me.
Oh my
Those were the 3
gosh.
things that she was looping in her brain. So at the moment of impact, that's what got stuck in her brain. So that's all that she could say. She couldn't tell me her name. She couldn't tell me like anything else that was going on. So I pulled her aside and I said, I think I've got something that can help you. This was the first time that I had done it in a scene of an accident. And so I worked with her, and she was just, I mean, she was just shaking like this. I mean, just a complete adrenaline. So I sat her down and she's just shaking, and I just walked her through the process. And after about, for her, it was probably closer to about 3.5 minutes. She takes a deep breath. She's like, oh, she stops shaking, and she's like, oh, I feel better. I was like, great. So I continued the process. And afterwards, and I said, so how you doing? She said, okay. And she started looking around and she was like, oh, I just need to call the insurance company. They'll take care of the car. My friend is going to be so grateful that I am alive and that I'm okay.
Oh,
So she went from, absolute terror into problem solving and realizing like, I'm alive and I'm grateful and my friend's going to be grateful. Now, I could have told her that when I pulled her out.
yeah.
That would not have made any difference because she could not have heard anything that I said. It wasn't until her brain came back online and her nervous system calmed down. And I made sure when I was doing the technique, there's a part of it where you want to access your 5 senses. So I wanted to make sure that she didn't have post-traumatic stress later. So a white truck hit her at a light.
Okay.
And so she could have, if we didn't do that, she would have been afraid to get in a car to drive, afraid to get in a car if somebody else was driving, afraid anytime she saw a white truck on the road, anytime that she hit a light, she would have gone into panic and anxiety. And so we just took out the entire traumatic experience and moved it, processed it really quickly. So it is awesome in the acute emergency situations. And if somebody has a broken leg, and you get them to the hospital and they are taken care of physically, and if their body does not come out of fight or flight on its own, that's when you would want to do the brains technique. It is not, the body in acute and chronic illness is not due to the body breaking down or the body rebelling against itself. It is due to the inability for the body to come back, for the nervous system to come back into homeostasis.
And how does that overlap with German new medicine? And if you want to give a little 101 on that, just because I'm obsessed with it
Sure.
and nobody knows what it is.
Sure. So in German New Medicine, and the German New Medicine philosophy is part of, we call it Germanische Heilkunde. It's
Beautiful.
how it's been renamed, or Germanic healing knowledge. So there's multiple names for it. And what that is that is a theory that is based on CT scans and on Western embryology. And so the entire thought process is that when there is something that is traumatic that happens, and trauma in German New Medicine is defined as something that is sudden, distressing, and isolative. Isolative meaning that the person feels alone or helpless. So when those three components are in play, and it will happen instantaneously in 1 millisecond, when those three components are in play, then a biological program will start, which means there will be physical symptoms and illness that will start, because the entire thought process is the body needs to get stronger for the next time this type of sudden, distressing, isolative event were to occur. So yeah, there's a whole process on that. Go ahead and ask me questions about it.
Well, I was going to say, like, for me, it's still a recurring thing, but much less often when I get a cold sore. And it's like, I know exactly what that trauma is, which in German New Medicine, we also say biological conflict.
Right.
And it's a separation conflict.
Yes.
A cold sore. And so when I get a cold sore now, I celebrate it because I'm like, sweet, I'm actually in the healing phase of one of those past times that I felt separated, lonely, and what was the other thing you said?
Distressing, sudden,
Distressing.
distressing,
Yeah.
isolated. Yep.
Yeah. So I love it. And it's a very different way to think about illness.
Yes.
Um,
It is totally 360 from what we have learned.
yeah. And
But
especially
it's based
when,
on CT scans and embryology. So it's based on
yeah,
Western science, but
yeah,
it's based on a different perspective of how to look at it.
yeah. And I mean, if you go on their website, I mean, it's diagrams, medical terminology, but like you can skim through the parts that are important. But I like that it has the deep nerdy science and that it does have
Yes,
that credibility piece to it. And
absolutely.
everything's coming back to the brain. So friendly,
Absolutely.
loving reminder, if you've never heard me say that, you know, Chinese medicine helps a lot of people recover from cancer.
Mhm.
And you've always explained very beautifully to me what the Germany medicine aspect of cancer is, if you want to go into that, because I feel like that's kind of like the quote unquote worst thing that people are going to be thinking about when they're thinking of an illness.
Of an illness. I mean, I mean, it's anything. It's a cold, it's a rash, it's a swollen knee, it's a flashing lights in your eyes, photophobia. I mean, there's like any type of symptom that is not caused by an external event. So if you fall and break your leg, that's something external. But if you trip and then fall, like it's because, like, say your leg just gave out and there was weakness, then that would be included in it. Or if there's an environmental toxin or something that's externally affecting your body, Germany medicine does not apply to those things. But any other time that you are in acute or chronic illness of any symptom, it is due to a trauma that has not been resolved by your psyche. And it is when that trauma gets resolved that those physical symptoms arise. So think of the times when you're totally stressed out, you're getting ready for vacation, and you're like trying to do 2 weeks worth of work in 1 week or one day, and you're trying to get home and the family's waiting for you. And, you know, it's a lot of stress, and you get on the beach or you get to the mountain and you go, oh my God, I'm here. I made it. And what happens? You get sick
Yep.
every time because you have resolved the stressor. You have finally slowed down enough and resolved the stressor. So German medicine has a lot of different perspectives. So when a trauma hits, something that's sudden, distressing, and isolated, you're going to hear me say that 500 times.
No, I'm glad, because I needed to get it in there.
And isolated means alone and helpless, that feeling. When something like that happens, depending on how your psyche perceives it, is depending on what type of symptoms and illness will occur. So, for example, a woman who is right-handed, is in normal hormone status, and their child goes off to college, and they have been terrified for 18 years that their child is going to leave the nest, like that they just don't, they don't want them to leave, and they're so, and they're very stressed about it. The moment that the child leaves, depending on what their psyche perceives it. So some people can look at it and go, hallelujah, they're out of my house. No trauma, right?
Yeah.
Another woman can look at it and go, oh my God, my baby's not in the house anymore, and can feel a separation conflict. So then a skin symptoms will start to arrive, hives, rashes, any type of skin issue. Or they can look at it as a nest worry, like, oh my God, my nest that had my child in it that I was responsible for, it's empty. And now what am I to do? So right-handed woman, normal hormone status, their left breast would actually grow cells in order to get ready to get pregnant again, to fill the nest, because that would be a physical solution. That would be a biological solution. Even if they're not, this has nothing to do with like they want kids, they don't want kids.
Yeah.
Our biology is going to find a solution to that somebody leaving the nest. Oh, we've got to bring somebody else in. We better grow cells. And so the sooner that we resolve that and are able to shift perspective about our child leaving, then we grow cells for a couple days or a couple hours or whatever, however long that we are in not resolved time frame. As soon as we resolve it, then the cells go away. Then the cancer cells actually leave. So it's really important to tend to our acute traumas as quickly as possible, because the longer that we stay in that fight or flight, the longer and more intense that symptom will be. So it'll be a difference between one cough or one sneeze and a 3-day cold and a 7-day cold and bronchitis of 6 weeks and pneumonia for 3 months. Like if we are in a space where our trauma is not resolved for a long period of time, then we are going to be sicker when we have resolution. So it's really, really important to resolve things as they come up and not wait for a symptom to occur. We actually can prevent illness with the brain's technique and knowing German new medicine.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just want to highlight what you said, because you were talking about growing cells in the
Mhm.
left breast. And I just want people to understand when she's saying that's when you are growing excess cells from stress, that is cancer cells.
So that would be diagnosed as cancer cells
Yeah.
if a scan was to be done at that moment.
Right.
But if that person resolves it, they may not ever know that they had breast cancer because
And
they
that's,
resolved it and it was quick.
yeah,
And so one day the left breast grew cells and the next day the cells decreased. The
incredible.
body will resolve it. We just have to resolve it in our psyche. And that's where we get stuck.
Yeah.
We have to do it as quickly as possible. So for example, I had, I think of so many different examples. My mind just went poof. So I'll give you, this is an interesting example. So I had a woman who, she's in her late 70s and her husband had died a couple years prior, and she was staying in a house where she was alone for the first time in a couple years since her husband died. And she went to bed that night and she was by herself, and her head was her left ear was on the pillow. So she was, had her right side up, and her all of a sudden she thought she heard somebody enter the basement door. She heard a door slam. Boom. She heard a door slam. So she gets up and she's like, she's totally scared because now she's home alone for the first time since her husband died. And she goes and she creeps downstairs and she realizes nobody's in the house. Everything's locked up. She's okay. She goes back to bed. She puts her head down on the pillow. And every time she puts her left ear on the pillow, she hears a door slam,
Whoa.
because her psyche was making sure that she was still safe. And so every night when she went to bed, she had what she termed as head banging syndrome. And she would hear every time she put her pillow on the left, she laid on her left ear, every time she would hear the door slam.
Wow.
And so, she was like, do I go to a neurologist? Do I go to a brain health coach? Do I go to an acupuncturist? Like, who can help me with this? And she did not realize that event at the time. Like, she didn't put 2 and 2 together. All of a sudden she was like, God, every time I put my head down at night, I'm hearing this door slamming. Like, what the
Yeah.
heck? So I taught her the brains technique, and I told her to do it I told her to put her left ear down on the pillow, and so that she would start hearing it. And I told her to go ahead and think about the event that was just a couple months old and think about how scared she was. And she did the process. And at the end of the process, the door slamming stopped. And she has
Amazing.
not had it ever again. Wasn't a neurological problem, was
No.
stuck in the psyche, and her brain was saying, hey, every time we lay down, we're scared because there might be a door slamming and you got to stay up and you got to stay alert and you got to stay awake. So the brain was trying to help her stay safe. But what we taught her with the brains technique is that we knew that she was safe and that nobody was in her house. And so her perspective, her psyche's perspective had to change in order to release that trigger. She never heard the door slamming during the day. She never heard if she laid down on the couch on her left ear. She never heard it during the day. Like, that's how phenomenal and smart our psyche is. So in German new medicine, well, in trauma theory, when a sudden, distressing, isolated event occurs, the psyche takes a 360-degree snapshot of everything that's happening around you. And it does so utilizing all 5 of your senses. So there could be a smell, there could be a sound, there could be a taste, a feeling, something visual. And so anything that is in that 360 snapshot at that millisecond can be a trigger, and that's what causes post-traumatic stress. So when something happens acutely in the last days, weeks, up to 4 months, if we can go in there during, like, in that short window of up to 4 months from the event, and we can process that information, our biological system does not have to respond as intensely as it would if we passed that 4-month marker. So if we pass that 4-month marker, there's still hope. Go to a therapist that practices EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, or ART. There's a bunch of things that can help with post-traumatic stress, but this I'm trying to prevent. We want to use the brains technique during the acute phase.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So I think so bilateral usually means that we have to have 2 hands, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so good point. And what that means is if you have a broken arm or you're elderly and it's hard to move both hands, then you can have somebody do the bilateral stimulation on you.
Okay. Cool.
So for somebody who's in the hospital, if you go visit them in the hospital, you can work on their lower legs and do the bilateral tapping there in a specific sequence and pace, and have them focus on certain things at different times stamps. And you can actually calm their nervous system down, because when you're in the hospital, most of the time, your nervous system has just gone into fight or flight, not just because of the event that brought you there, but also because there's nurses coming in and there's machines beeping and there's doctors coming in and you don't know when they're coming. And I mean, you're just on hyper vigilant alert.
Yeah.
And so if you can anytime you can come back into parasympathetic, you're going to come back into rest, digest, heal. You will not heal until you are on parasympathetic. You cannot heal. You cannot heal a wound. Like, think about if you're running from a tiger and you have a wound on your leg. There is not one cell in your body that is going to heal that wound or focus on that wound. It is all about surviving that millisecond.
Wow. So if we can do that tapping for other people, what about our 4-legged babies?
You can. And that is the most amazing thing to do with your animals, because as you do the process with them, and it usually takes, for them, it's like probably 2 to 3 minutes instead of 5 to 7. Oh, there's my thumb.
Confirmation.
Confirmation. But you can do it so animals know that. So think of the brains technique as a dog shaking to reset their nervous system. Okay. And they're finding a solution of, like, okay, I'm going to shake it off. And then what do I need to do to solve the problem? Do I need to leave because there's somebody in the house that they don't like or feel safe with, or, like, what do they need to do? And so when you work with animals, you do it up until they will start yawning, or they'll go for a shake, or they'll start getting restless. It's the same thing with kids. you can use this technique with kids as well. And it doesn't take that long. It takes, 2 to 4 minutes instead of 5 to 7, because their nervous system is much more quickly going to come back into parasympathetic.
Okay, cool. So when is the next training?
So the next training is for practitioners and caregivers. So you don't have to be a practitioner if you're caring for somebody, or a CNA or anything like that, is on December 7th. And you can go to my website at brainstechnique.com, brains plural. And then I also have a continuing education CEU class for acupuncturists in North Carolina and Florida. And then I
What?
also am training individuals as well to learn it as well. And that program will be in January. So all my programs, and there's constantly free webinars and things like that, but there's also courses so that you can learn the brain's technique. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm thinking of anyone who's gonna, deal with stuff during Thanksgiving that could be traumatic. And then I'm also
Yes.
thinking of little baby Archer. So I left for 6 days to go house sitting, and he just doesn't like being at the house.
Yeah.
He made the decision not to come, but this little rascal decided to run away for 5 days. And of course, my friends were like, we didn't want to tell you, so you'd freak out. And I'm like, he's responsible for his own little life, but I would love to do the brains technique with him.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's so
yeah,
funny.
we can totally do that. Yeah, so you can use the brain's technique for trauma, for overwhelming emotions when you feel hijacked from emotions, from stress, for making better decisions, for increasing communication skills, because if you're going into a difficult conversation, the blood flow from your prefrontal cortex is exiting the premises, and you then cannot say what you want to say, and you cannot hear the other person. And so it's great to do either before a difficult conversation, or if you're in the middle of a difficult conversation and your brain freezes, you can say, excuse me, I'll be back in, 7
5 to
minutes.
7 minutes.
Yes, I'll be right back. Let me just take a break and I'll be back. And you always say how long you're going to be gone. And then you can also use it for enhance it. We've talked about there's 9 different ways. Let me think of all of them off of
Let me count the ways.
Let me count the ways. Emotional balance and mood. So anytime, again, like you're hijacked, changing behavior or beliefs. So if you have a belief, and this is so vital, I will tell you of a client that I worked with. So a client was diagnosed with her 5th cancer since 2009,
Oh my
last
goodness.
year, and she was diagnosed with lymph node cancer, and she had lymph nodes in her groin area. And in German new medicine, that lymph nodes, when they're affected, is about a real self-worth, self-devaluation type of conflict. And so I asked her, I said, so I know it's hard to rate things, but I said, out of 100%, how much do you love yourself? She said, maybe 40%. I was like, okay. I said, we're going to work on that. So we worked on her belief system with the brain's technique session. By the end of the session, she was up to 90%, which was fantastic.
Oh my God.
And 2 days later, the lymph nodes completely dissipated. She cannot find them. So she gets a scan in another month, and we will have the Western medical confirmation, but she cannot find them. And she had pain there when I asked her on a scale of 1 to 10 in her groin area, what was the pain level? And she said it was a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. We got it down to a 1, and now it's at 0. It's completely gone. And just a couple of days later, I asked her to palpate, to feel, and she could not feel anything. So changing your beliefs, yes.
Amazing.
And when there is a health diagnosis, the shock, that is really that always sets our nervous system into fight or flight, and we are running like hell from that tiger. We are running like hell from that diagnosis. And so as soon as something like that happens for you or a loved one, you want to do the brains technique, because you cannot find the solution of the doctors you want to work with, or if you want to do integrative medicine or whatever is working for you, you cannot find that solution until your brain is back fully on and your nervous system is calm.
Mhm.
Um, and then downgrading acute and chronic illness, and it works with pain as well. So, as I said, with the groin pain, this particular woman also, I worked with hip pain, and I said, she was supposed to have her hip replaced, but they had her on chemo every other week for the rest of her life.
Really?
And so she was not allowed to have hip surgery because she would miss some chemo treatments. And so they were like, we can't give you any more painkillers because that you're on the chemo, and you're just going to have to live with the hip pain. So I said, what's the pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? She said 200. I was like, okay, this is pretty intense. And so we did the session, and after the session, she was down to a 1. She was able to stand up. She was able to walk. And I followed up with her about a month later, and I said, how's your hip pain doing? And she said, sometimes it gets up to about a 5 if I do something funky. She said, but even if it stayed at a 5, I could live with that for the rest of my life. She said, normally it's between a 0 and a 2. No drugs, no therapist, no medicine, just working with the person's psyche. So important. Yeah. So it works with
Heard it.
physical pain as well.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Whitney is going to be so famous, as we all are, because yeah, all these stories run through my head of like, the car accident is a big one, right? Like I know so many people who for years, and I was judgy, I'll be honest, because some of them claim to be great trauma therapists, and I'm like, you're not walking your talk. You literally can't even say car without,
Right.
I can just tell you're going into fight, flight, freeze.
Right.
This is an EMDR brain spotting therapist I'm thinking about, you guys. Like,
Yes.
her doing this would have changed
Yeah.
everything.
Yep. Yep. So if we learn it now, we will have it for the rest of our lives to take care of ourselves, others, and our pets.
I'm excited. And I know I only did it once, and I'm excited to do the training, and I'm inviting everyone here to join in the training. Whitney's been more than gracious in, the low fee that she's charging to give you this modality. And especially if you're ready to take the leap into creating a business or taking a leap into shifting from therapy to coaching, like this is literally being served to you on a silver platter. And like, there's no one, like there aren't a lot of people that I would look forward to training me on anything brain related. And Whitney is one of those
Right. Because you
people.
know all the stuff. You get
And I am
experience.
so excited to do this. But I do remember when we were doing it, there was, like the stimulation and the stuff up, the padding on my legs. And I just this morning kept getting this visual of when I was a little girl, and we would sit cross-legged and we would do the, what's it called?
Like patty cake?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's even this element of like play too that I think is really fun. And I definitely have some stuff from the last 3 months and 2 weeks that I'm looking forward to processing. But it just gives me so much more hope as someone that likes to support other people, and then so much more hope too that when some of these big manifestations do come in and these quantum leaps, like I always have this part of my subconscious that sabotages them. And trust me, I've been working on it for a very long time and work on it every day. But like, I know that this is the thing that I have been like praying for a very long time.
Yeah.
And like, because it's all about your nervous system. I mean, you guys know, like you can't manifest without having a regulated nervous system. And as much as I love all of the supplements and the energy work and all of those things, like there was still a piece missing. And this is that piece. And I just cannot wait to do this. And of course, little Archer is going to be very excited because he loves this. And I can't believe he took off for 5 days, like in the middle of nowhere, Northern Ohio.
But he came back.
He did. He came back right before I got there.
He was like, I'm not happy when mom's not around.
I know. And yeah, there's just been so much like super connecting lately. And I'm sure a lot of you are feeling that energy. People are just coming out of the woodwork, and we're just meeting these amazing people. And again, like what I was saying at the beginning, I just want to reiterate, like it only takes one person to change the trajectory of your whole life. And for me, Whitney is one of those people, and I would love for her to be that for you too. I will be at the next cohort that starts on December 7th. I would love for you to join me. It's going to be so fun. And we're going to be able to heal our own stuff. So look through your journals. What are some things that weren't so fun in the last 4 months that you are looking forward to helping people with? And especially with this timing, like I said, like me just shutting down over the Asheville thing, the fact that I know that I'll be able to help people if, God forbid, there is something else really big that does happen, that means a lot to me. And for me, that's like multiple lifetimes of stuff. Like there's a reason I come from a line of firefighters, right? It's because long ago we lost everything in a fire, right? And there's this part of me that's always wanted to be the hero, but it's a 50-50 toss up if I'm going to be like all the way on and helping someone, or if I'm going to shut down and I become this completely different person, right? Not being able to talk, like, let's be honest, like that's not me. Oh, I am so excited about this. And I will put all the links below so that you guys can jump in. And
I do just want to say, so because I've been on the ground in Asheville, you can use it on the phone. You know, for quite a few days, we did not have cell service. Once we got cell service back, we were able, but people, I mean, I didn't have internet for 3 weeks. You know, there was a lot of communication issues. And so you can use this, you don't have to be with the person. And if somebody doesn't have access to utilizing both hands, they can have somebody, the trainer can help them get somebody else to do the tapping over the phone. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I always forget, like my whole life is virtual. I forget that I have to let people know that. But yeah, the times that I called you and was like hoping you would answer, I'm like, But
thank you so much. I so appreciate you,
Fallon. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm so glad that we got to catch up and share this with everybody, and definitely sending everyone well wishes for an amazing holiday. And I hope that we get to see you at the Brains Technique training, because it's going to be so amazing, life-changing. Yeah, I just feel like we're all going to put on this like superhero cape.
I love it. I love it.
Yes,
yeah.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, check out the links below, you guys. Get in Whitney's beautiful world, and I will check in with you soon. Bye for now. Love you lots.
Bye.